Hey everyone, if you don't know me, my name is Sarah, and I'm sure you're wondering how I got here. Well, to understand that, we have to go all the way back to September 7th, exactly 118 days from today. It all started with an idea, an overambitious, crazy, time-consuming idea. I wanted to crochet appa. And not just any appa, a super big appa made out of size 4 acrylic yarn. I wanted the pattern to be super seamless and just an all-around crazy looking piece. Well, with this idea in mind, I set to work. I began with the feet because they were the smallest pieces. I could build everything around them. I then crocheted the legs, the belly, and connected them all together. I finished the body and crocheted the head. To be honest, I really hated it. It didn't look anything the way I wanted it to. So that was the end of appa. Now, I may have over-dramatized that because I was market prepping like crazy at the time. I had to put it aside because it was taking too much time and I had a bunch of other things to make. But I still hated it. I didn't like the way it looked. I didn't like the way the head sat on the body. I didn't like the way the body looked. I sunk all these hours in and it didn't look the way I wanted it to look. But since it's January, I don't have any markets to prep for. I'm not really busy with anything in particular. So I decided to pick them up again. Last night to be exact. And I decided to work on the head. I identified some of the issues and set to work. Now, here is the head, and I'm actually super impressed. I can't believe how good it looks. So with a bunch of things, I just decided to just put it on, sew it on, and see what it looked like. And it went from something I hated to something I'm really excited to finish. After all that backstory, we're gonna finish this work in progress, and we're gonna finish it in this video because it's time for appa to get out of my closet. Okay, so you might be wondering what this pile of stuff is. This is my reject pile. So these are things that I started working on, and instead of just pulling it back out, I decided to set it aside and see if I'd want to use it later. Now, none of this I will be using. I will respin these two back into a ball of yarn, probably after the project. But other than that, I'm not going to be using any of this. So this goes into my trash pile. It's not literally garbage, but it is my scrap pile. So the issue that I'm running into right now is my appa's body. Now, I think the feet look fine and the belly looks fine. I do think the body should have been a little shorter, but I think the main issue and why it looks a little awkward is the fact that it has no neck. Now, appa doesn't really have that big of a neck, but it is a neck. You can see that it is a neck. There is a neck on appa. So my plan right now is to crochet a few short rounds onto the body to connect the head to the body. I think the other issue is that the head is a little too big compared to the body at this point, but the head is already done and it's gorgeous. So I think I'm just gonna keep it where it's at. I'm gonna sit with it for a few minutes and see if I wanna make the body bigger and compare some photos, and I'll let you guys know. Okay, so before we actually get started crocheting and everything, I wanted to do a bit of a checklist with you and talk with you about what my plan is to finish this piece. So like I said in the last clip, I want to make a neck. So on appa, the hump goes down just a little bit more and then the head starts. So I'm going to bring this out just a tiny bit more as best I can and then attach the head. I'm going to see how that looks. I also have to build the tail, which is the part that I've been stuck on as well. I haven't really decided what shape to do, so I think what I'm going to do is just commit, pick a shape, and go for it. And finally, we also need the arrow. Now, the arrow I'm actually going to felt on, or I'm going to get some felt and secure it on. I think I will be felting it though. It'll take a long time, but I think that's the best way to get a seamless, flatter look than with crocheting it on top, because I don't really want, like I said earlier, I want it to be seamless. So the head is done. I might add some more details later, but I think this is about exactly what I want it to look like. So I will be leaving the head like this for now at least, and working on the neck next. I think what I'm going to do with the tail is work it as a separate piece and sew it on. But we'll see how that goes. When we get there, there's a lot of work in between these things. So what I'm going to do is extend the neck just a little bit right now, and we'll see how well that goes and all that. So I'm usually the type of person who finishes a project shortly after starting it. I don't usually have a bunch of WIPs going at the same time unless they're like, you know, a blanket and a doll. I don't usually put a doll down while I'm working on it. But for Appa, I started to get really discouraged, and I know that when I'm discouraged, things can start to look really wonky. So what I decided to do was set the project aside and go from there. So what I did was I set the project aside, and it wasn't just because this project was frustrating me. It was also because I had a bunch of markets at the time, and I had to be market prepping. So I didn't want to focus on this project any longer until, I don't know what I was gonna say, but until after market prep. So after market season, it's now January and I have nothing going on. So I decided to finish this project. I've also decided to bring you guys along since I need to post content anyways. Right now I'm struggling on trying to figure out where to start. I know that the hump needs to come down a bit more, but I don't think crocheting this directly on will give it as nice of a look as I want it to. So I think what I'm gonna do is just think about it for a few minutes. I think something important to note is when you're doing a large project, something like this, where you're freehanding everything and it can be frustrating at times, I think it's important to set the project aside every once in a while and just work on something different. Now, I don't recommend setting it aside for 120 days, but I think setting it aside does help. It honestly helped me to see the flaws in my pattern, which helped me to finish the head last night instead of continuing to, you know, leave it in its hidey hole. So I think I'm just gonna start crocheting and see what shape I get and go from there. I'm gonna crochet the neck directly on because, like I said, I want seamless. So let's see how this goes. So I actually didn't write down the crochet hook size for this, so I think I'm using the wrong hook. I'm gonna up to a 4mm because I was definitely crocheting pretty loose for this pattern. So I'm gonna switch to a 4mm and go from there as well. So before we get any further into this video, I wanted to thank the person who left a super thanks in my comments recently. I really appreciate your support. It means so much to me. So thank you very much if you're seeing this. Okay, so I just finished the neck. I think it kind of brings everything together a little bit more. I'm trying to decide if I should make it a little longer or leave it where it is. I think it looks okay. So I'm gonna attach the head and stuff it really good to make sure that it is pretty full, and then we might start on the tail. So let's do this. Okay, so I finished the neck as you guys saw, and now we're gonna move on to the tail. I think once the tail is on, it will balance out a bit more and it won't look like he's leaning forward so much. And I think the tail will tie in the neck a bit more and make it a little bit more seamless. It's not perfect, but it's definitely much better than what it was going to look like. So we're gonna get started on the tail and see where we're at when the tail is done. Okay, so I took a little bit of break, which is why the camera angle is a little wonky. As you saw in the last clip, I finished the tail. I'm not 100% impressed with it, but I'm just going to keep working on it because just like the head, once I start adding more details, it starts to come together. It's kind of like a base coat in painting. It looks terrible, but then as we add more details, it should come together. What I'm going to work on right now is the underside of the tail and then sew it on and see what the shape looks like after that. I did have the tail stuffed, but I unstuffed it because I don't think I'm going to be stuffing it very hard. So I'm going to leave it unstuffed until I'm done sewing and then go from there, decide to stuff it or not. I tried to experiment a bit to get the tail to fold. The other thing is when it's unstuffed, it tends to fold up on its own anyways. So I don't know. We're gonna think about it. I have myself a strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper. Of course, my water too. So we're all set. I spent the entire morning crocheting. So now we're gonna spend most of the afternoon crocheting. I do have an errand to run, so hopefully I will get back here afterward though. But before said errand, we're gonna finish the underbelly. So let's get to it. So I have just come back from my errand and I'm ready to start again. What you last saw was me sewing the tail on. I'm not 100% sure if I like it. I think it needs more stuffing, so I think that's what I'm gonna work on. Stuff it a little more. Let me get a better angle. Give me a second. Okay, so this is where we're at. Obviously the tail is sticking up too far. It needs to sit against the table. So I think what I'm going to do right now is just do some structural things. I'm going to draw the legs in so he's less splay-legged. Bring the tail down so that it is against the table rather than floating like that. And then we'll see where we're at then. Like I said, I do want to stuff the tail a bit more, so that's probably what I'll do as well. Okay, so I'm not really liking, sorry, through the microphone. What I was gonna say was I'm not really liking the way the tail was looking or how it sits. I think I'm gonna look at some reference photos and see if there's a way that I can salvage this. At this point, the only thing I have left is to felt the arrow on. The problem I'm having is that the body in general isn't the way I want it to look. It doesn't look the way I want it to look. The head is like perfect, but you can't just put Appa's head. That would be weird, you know? We're not hunting Appa, we're crocheting him. So I don't really know what to do at this point. I think I might just move on to felting and see if that can cover some of the seams maybe. I'd put some wire in the tail, which seemed to help a little bit, but I don't know, it's kind of very square, and I mean, Appa's tail is pretty square, so I'm kind of thinking of brushing him, but I don't want to mess up. And I'm really torn because I think brushing him would tie it together more. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes of thought, and I'm probably gonna brush it because that's where I'm leaning right now. I'm probably gonna brush him, and I think that'll help. So Yeah. Okay, so I have two different brushes. I have the one brush for making him fluffy, and then I have another brush for just smoothing the fur out. So what I think I'm gonna do is brush it, starting with the tail, because that's the part I dislike the most. So, I really hope this is the right decision. So let's try it. Hey guys, just wanted to give a little update real quick. It is pretty late at night, so I'm not going to be able to get much done today. Well, much else done for today. So the plan is to start creating wool out of this color yarn and prep that for the felted arrow that I'm going to put on. I needed to look at some reference photos after that to see where I'm going to end up putting the arrow, where his little details and markings are. Right now though, I'm just going to spend the next little while completing the brushing. You can see it's kind of patchy in some areas, so I want to finish up and get it as even looking as possible. It's late anyway, so that's probably what I'll do. And in the next clip, you will hopefully see me tomorrow morning. I found some felt, to my surprise. So, I was planning on needle felting, that's the word, directly onto Appa, but as you saw in the last couple of clips, that wasn't working out. The yarn that I was brushing out ended up actually being a lot lighter than I thought it would, which is kind of crazy in hindsight considering how light it is, but it also didn't brush very well, so it didn't make very good wool, and I don't really have the ability to make it any finer. And as you also saw in the last clip, I broke all of my needle felting needles like 10 seconds after starting the project. So I decided to go run into Walmart and I found some packs of felt, which is crazy that I managed to find it. If you hear the meowing, that is little baby Abby, and she's not coming in here. Okay, so I have two different colors here. We have a lighter color and a darker color. I'm gonna look at some reference photos, but I think I'm gonna go with the lighter color because, let's see. Yes, the lighter color makes more sense. So I'm gonna set the darker one aside and just use the light color. Now here, these are adhesive felt, which isn't necessarily what I was looking for, but it is kind of a cool concept. The plan is to draw the design on the back, make sure it fits the head and the body and everything, and then cut it out. Now I'm thinking after I cut it out is actually brushing this slightly so that it kind of matches the fur texture that I did on the actual piece. So we're just gonna get started on that right now and we'll see how far I get. I really want to finish this project today, so we're gonna finish it today. That's the plan anyways, so let's do it. Okay, so here's where we're at now. I'm actually not the biggest fan of this color because it doesn't blend in as much as I wanted it to. But I think I'm just gonna do a lot more brushing or actually gonna glue it into place with fabric glue. This is a felt with an adhesive on the back, but I do not think it's for yarn, it's for paper. So I will be actually securing it on. Let me turn it around for you so you can see the face. All right, the front angle is definitely the best angle, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I might just tear it all off and find something that's in a different color. It's just very orangey. Especially on camera, it looks super orangey, but I don't know. We shall see. So I'm kind of at an impasse. I know that I can make this look really good if I glue it down, which is the plan, but I also know that the color isn't exactly the color I want it to be. I think I'm gonna rip it off and get new stuff tomorrow, which means another day of not finishing Appa. In the meantime though, I think I'll look for my replacement needles because I know I have some, I just can't find them. Let's see if I can maybe start doing that. I thought this would be the right color, but it is much too bright for the color of fur that I picked in the feet. He's almost more of a grayish tone than an orange, so this isn't gonna work out. And since this project is something very large, very time consuming, I'd rather use something that matches better. So I guess I got another day of waiting before I can finish Appa. Okay, so it's currently Friday night, I might add. I spent all day looking for yarn and running errands, so it's late at night. I gotta cook dinner, so I'm not gonna stay here for very long, but I did find some roving. I did change my mind again. For Appa, we are going to be doing a needle felted arrow, that's the word. I haven't quite decided what color out of these ones I will be using, but I believe I will be using this color right here. Anyways, so I don't really know where I was going with this, but I got refills and a new needle punch, and we're gonna start needle felting. So I gotta go because dinner's calling my name, but after that, hopefully we'll have an arrow. As you can see, I am almost done with Appa. So I'm going to point out a few things I have left to finish, and then we're going to do it. So as you can see, I got actually a lot of work done with the needle felting. There's cleanup that I have to do, smoothing everything out, but for the most part it is attached. Right now I have to round these corners off on the tail so it looks a little more smooth. Same on the bottom here, like what I did up here. Made it look a little bit more cohesive and a little nicer. And then I'm missing one marking up here, so I gotta finish that one and then round off all these corners, and then I'm done. So real quick before I get started, I got some wool roving, which I showed earlier. This is honestly the best thing I could have done. I don't recommend making your own roving unless you have two brushes. You can get it really fine, and then it'll be hit or miss on what yarn types turn into good roving and what doesn't. So what I tried to use earlier did not work. It broke all my needles within the first 3 seconds of using it. So now that I've switched to this, I haven't broken a single needle yet, and I don't think I will for the rest of the project. I don't want to speak too soon though. So the other thing, tools wise, I bought this tool today, which has a whole bunch of needles on it. There's 7 needles on this tool. It's a really cool tool, but It's not my preferred tool. I actually bought this one a while ago, and this is the one I've been using. So it's a lot longer, and there's only 3 needles. Out of both of these, this one worked better and is my favorite. I don't need this one for the project. It is helpful, but I've used this one for the majority of the project. So keep that in mind. It also had this really annoying plastic thing in it, which I figured out how to take out, thankfully, which is what the spring is about. The only thing I don't like about this, though, is now it doesn't have a lid. So I have to open it all back up to put the plastic piece back on, to close it back up. So yeah, now I gotta fuss with this, but I don't want to pull all the needles out. Let me see. There we go. Plastic piece right here. I dropped my spring. Yep, there it is. Haha. Found it. Spring. Whoops. Plastic thing. Then the spring. Then the needle casing. Just the hard part. Okay. I don't think it's in right. You know what? Spring's going around. There we go. It's okay, buddy. Okay. There we go. And then that metal piece and then the lid. Finally. Now the reason I don't like this is because it's actually really annoying. So let me show you. So you can hear the plastic every single time. And honestly, it doesn't do a very good job compared to this. It's a little bit slower because there's less contact area, but I don't have to go back and forth. I just get it all done. So now we're just gonna speed through it. We're gonna finish the last piece. The way I like to do this is actually cut out the shape of the roving and place it on, and then felt the shape that I want, and then cut off any extra and then clean up the edges. That's the way I do it. So I'll show you how to do that real quick, and then we're gonna time lapse and finish this up. It looks like I'll be able to finish this project tonight. And there we have the other side. There's a bit of touching up that I'd like to do. So I like to do is just gently use the needles to shape the piece. Now the needles are brittle, so you don't want to do this very hard. You also don't have to do it at all. You can add more wool. Okay, so real quick, there's obviously some adjustments that need to be made. What I'll do real quick is what I like about Appa is it doesn't need to be perfect. There's lots of photos online, and every photo that's different markings because he is hand drawn and all that. I mean, I'm assuming he's hand drawn. That's something my sister would say, so I feel like I'm on the right track. Anyways, what I'm gonna say was the markings aren't all the same, so it's not a big deal if it's a little uneven, and for the most part, you're not even gonna notice. So then what I'm doing is taking this brush and adjust, like getting rid of the actual needle marks out of the felt. So now I have a couple more details to add, so I'm going to do a better camera angle for that so you guys can see it more clearly. And yeah, then we'll be done. So let's just do that. And he's finished. Look at this guy. He is massive. He's got his arrow and his markings. Obviously it looks way better than the felt did. That felt is not the right color for Appa. So this guy is now complete, and I'm going to actually wait till morning so that you guys can see him in daylight.